on Interesting Times, episode 12, part 2. That's what I'm calling it, Matt.
That sounds reasonable. It's been a big 2 news days in a row here. Yesterday was Donald Trump getting convicted of 34 counts of felony crimes.
And people are still reeling, I feel like. It's, do you feel like people are still kind of shocked?
You know, I think so, but I almost feel like the reaction feels a little academic to some extent. I mean, some people, obviously the right wing is raving, but I think there's part of it where we feel like, oh, well, okay, he was convicted, but is he actually going to face any consequences still?
Right. Well, maybe we'll start by talking about some of the reactions.
Yes, certainly some of these reactions are spicy.
And, obviously, Alvin Bragg, the DA, did a press conference last night.
Yeah.
And people have been commenting how even though his name is Bragg, he's not, bragging about it.
I guess, you gotta play it cool.
Yeah, especially with this one. And people said nobody even shook hands or smiled on his team. And, his whole thing in this press conference was we did our job. And a lot of people are criticizing him, saying he was biased and he ran as DA on the issue of nabbing Trump. But actually, he was against bringing this case for a while and was taking a lot of criticism for that.
Yeah, it feels like he did everything he possibly could to avoid this case.
Yeah. And I mean, he's, he's going to be able to do big things after, unless he wants to be the DA forever, but he could with this victory, if we are talking politically, he probably could be whatever he wants.
I know.
He could be
I wonder.
Governor, or
I'll be curious. What would he or is he a marked man now? Especially if we go into this dictatorship.
Right. True. Good point. Yeah, I think one of the reporters after the press conference, while he was walking out, was like, "Are you worried that Trump is going to try to get revenge if he becomes president?" That is so chilling.
Yeah. That is a serious question. Yeah, it's chilling.
And Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, he said, this verdict says more about the system than the allegations. It will be seen as politically motivated and unfair, and it will backfire tremendously on the political left. And he said, I expect this case to be reversed on appeal and for Donald Trump to be elected president in November.
Now, it's very unlikely, I've read, for a case like this to get reversed on appeal. It just doesn't generally happen when there is a jury verdict that is unanimous like this.
Yeah, I think the odds must be super low.
Yeah.
And especially since this judge was really good. He seemed excellent.
I know. I mean, he cut Trump so much slack, really, that I don't think a normal offender would have been.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, it's just bizarre how, when January 6th happened, all the Republicans were sort of, coming out against Trump, and then they kind of slowly changed their tune. But this time, nobody's really, on the Republican side, nobody's really, taking him to task, turning on Trump.
No, they never, what they needed to do was do, an Ides of March takedown, where they all got together quietly, or a huge contingent, and decided that they were going to take this guy out. Obviously, I don't mean violently, but all came out in mass against him. But since they never did that, there were these little skirmishes of trying to take him down and people putting a toe in the water to try and take him down and pull their support away. But it didn't work, and then even people who had seemed to turn on him, right back, puppies at his leg.
Yeah. I mean, you'd think that people would be a little bit nervous about just jumping on board after this guy is now a convict felon.
I guess so, but what's the alternative for them, right?
Right. And it could also be said that Trump give a press conference this morning, the day after.
Yeah.
And apparently there were no, like, congressmen or allies or senators standing with him. So maybe they're okay, like, writing it on Twitter or X or whatever.
Interesting.
But they don't want to, like, be seen in a video.
Do you feel like there's even something in the air of, like, oh, maybe this is going to shift things in a way?
I feel like things are a bit different right now. Huh. It feels kind of like this is a new chapter.
I guess. I don't know. He must have raised a ton of money already. I'm getting
he did,
many...
34 million. 34,
okay, obviously
apparently.
The Dems are trying to counter that, just based on the amount of texts I'm getting this morning and last night from asking for money. It's out of control.
And just a couple of other reactions. Ivanka Trump, who didn't even show up in the court during the trial, she did, like, one of those... Instagram things that kind of, they're up there, like stories.
Yeah.
They're up for like 24 hours. So it's not even going to be up there. It's probably gone already or will be in a few hours. Yeah. She just wrote, like, she said, "I love you, Dad," with like a heart emoji, which is pretty tame, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Eric said, May 30th, 2024 might be remembered as the day Donald J. Trump won the 2024 election.
Yeah, this seems to be a theme of people saying, like, you libs shouldn't have done this because now you handed him the election. But that is not how this worked. A jury decided this case. Yeah,
and it's also just hard to predict. You just can't, it's hard to even know.
Oh, that too, as well.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying that, this wasn't some concerted effort to actually take him down.
You don't think Trump is just like Nelson Mandela?
I mean, he is a public figure. That
big similarities there, I would say.
There are some. Did he call himself Nelson Mandela? That feels like something.
I mean, I don't know if he's called. He has compared himself. He might have. Well, who's the anti-Putin guy who just died?
I don't remember his name, but the guy who was in prison in Russia, that guy.
Yeah, Trump has compared himself to that to him.
Oh God. I think also maybe. I mean, I was excited, and it definitely felt like a shot of adrenaline yesterday, but it's also this age of Trump thing where I'm still kind of like, all right, yeah, another ridiculous thing has happened.
Right. Navalny,
that's it.
That name escaped me.
That's reasonable.
Yeah.
Oy.
Oh, crazy.
So
you've been looking into the sentencing process, and one thing we got wrong yesterday, we were like, can a convict travel? Can a felon travel? And apparently right now he can. He's released on his own recognizance, which basically means like he could go abroad or travel the country.
That's
if he goes to jail, he won't be able to, obviously. But.
Right. Well, so that's one option. I was looking into what are the options? What can really happen here? Well, he could be imprisoned for 4 years because each charge he was convicted on has a sentence of 4 years, but they would be served concurrently, so it would be for 4 years.
Right,
he could literally, the judge could say, like, all right, you're off to prison today when he's sentenced. That's one option. Or he could give him probation, and probation would have certain restrictions on him. So then he could have restrictions on how much he can travel or where he could travel.
Would he have the Martha Stewart ankle bracelet?
He could have the ankle bracelet.
That would be fun if everybody knows he has that on.
That would be a lot of fun. Yeah, but it's basically like he's supposed to stay out of trouble.
Right. And he has to report to a probation officer.
Exactly. Yeah. And then there's something called conditional discharge, which is sort of like probation, but a lot looser.
It sounds a little dirty.
I hadn't considered that. It does. Well, all discharges are conditional, I would say. So,
right.
In this case, he gets to be free as long as he meets certain conditions, like just simply could be as much as just staying out of trouble. But it could be stuff like, I mean, this would be for other convicts probably, would be like, does he adhere to getting an education or being employed? Or there could be like a no contact order with certain people. Or he could have to adhere to a curfew, which would be
right. Wow, that's funny.
Then there's also the option of community service.
Oh my God, that would be a nightmare for him.
That would be really... I feel like if it was like an 80s sitcom or something, he would like, oh, he has to be Joe Biden's slave for a week or something. And Biden dresses him up in like a maid outfit. I don't know.
That's
this
funny.
is an 80s sitcom, all right? So work
if
with
he
me.
did, if his community service was like doing something for like undocumented immigrants, like that would be like having to help them. That would be that would like be like a sitcom, like a TV show too, you know?
Yeah, the problem is he would learn something by the end, and then he'd win, right?
Win the election because he'd have empathy. You're saying he might have capacity for empathy.
Well, you know how so many
big
people
assumption.
are. Yeah, they hate immigrants, but you know, once they're confronted with a person,
of course,
it's like racist people. Oh, you're one of the good ones.
But he's a psychopath. So
he is a true psychopath. That is correct.
And he also employs a lot of immigrants. So
illegally.
Yeah. So he obviously knows some, maybe, and likes them, but just wants to win, wants power. So hate mongering is the way to go.
Yeah, I believe.
Anyway.
Yeah. I believe a lot of
I'm
people...
sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. I believe a lot of the people he employs at Mar-a-Lago are immigrants. It's just based on all the reporting on that other case. Which that's
right.
Another thing people are saying.
Oh,
like,
the documents case.
Documents case. People are saying, well, what actually decides this sentencing? And it's up to the judge, really. But they look to a bunch of different things. And one of them might be that, oh, you're charged with, you're charged with multiple felonies coming up in 3 different cases. You know, if that was anybody else, that might be like, okay, we're going to send you to prison then because this is not good. But before sentencing, what happens is a pre-sentencing investigation. And this is like a probation officer or a social worker conducts an interview with the offender about everything, really, about their family, their employment, financial status,
their upbringing,
health,
right?
All that stuff. Yeah.
Is that to find mitigating factors? Like if they had a rough childhood and was abused, maybe there'd be a little more sympathy in the sentencing?
Think so. Yeah, I think it's really, and I think they're really trying to suss out: are you going to reoffend, and what kind of threat do you pose to the community? A big part of it is the risk assessment. Are they going to reoffend? Yeah, as I said.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And obviously, these convicts in regular cases are usually unknown people. So it's so funny that they're going to be talking to this guy that everybody knows.
Right. And it's interesting to think about how would they judge what would reoffending look like and what would the community safety look like?
For this type of case,
well, for this, it would be, I guess, lying to the public again and covering up evidence as he's running for president.
Yeah.
So there's a real chance he could reoffend.
He's done fraud many times, but just hasn't been found guilty of it.
That's true. We got him this time. We got him.
Right, exactly. Now, the one thing I have read in Trump's favor for the sentencing is that he is an old man, which I guess, and he hasn't been convicted before this time, so he is a first-time offender.
True.
So the judge could say, well, he's old and maybe he's not like gonna be violent, so he's not gonna like kill somebody.
Right.
So maybe he doesn't need to go to jail. But then the other argument against that is that Michael Cohen, went to bed. That's what I'm thinking. I need to go to bed. But he went to jail for these same crimes, but he was the lieutenant and Trump was the mastermind. So how could that possibly be fair if Michael Cohen went to jail?
You're
and
100%
Trump
right.
did
It doesn't seem fair at all that Trump would get off after that for the same crime, or essentially the same crime. And I've read that Merchant does take white-collar crime seriously based on his record.
Good.
But I love this idea of him getting out of jail because he's old. That would be an ice-cold move for Merchant to say that. Like, I feel
That would be ironic, too. That's really funny.
And then Trump would say, like, no, well, that's another thing is what's Trump going to say at the sentencing? Are they going to give him a chance to plead for a lesser sentence before the court and to show his to say he's sorry? What's that going to be?
That's really funny. You have to think he is going to speak. And do they sometimes have, like, witnesses at these things? Like, somebody can get on the stand and say Trump's really a good guy, so don't give him
I think that does happen. I think certainly there could be victim statements here. That would be amazing if
oh, wow.
if Michael Cohen.
That
I
would
guess
be
who's
good.
the victim? It would be like every voter.
Yeah, right. Now, I think Marshawn has a really rough job, because I think if he gives him jail time during the campaign, everybody's going to say this is campaign interference.
Right.
So, and if he doesn't give him jail, people are going to say you're treating Trump better than everybody else. So, I think it's really hard. I wonder if what will happen is Trump will get a very small amount of jail. Like a month or
like
less.
a week or something?
Or even
days.
a week.
Oh,
I mean,
a month would be... even a month would be...
Maybe a week. Maybe a week feels like it's not a slap on the wrist, that it's not going to be fun for him, so that it's a good middle ground where, yes, he is being found, there's some accountability there.
Right, but
and then there'll be a lot of probation, too, obviously.
Right, and the judge could say, there are many arguing that this is going to be good for your campaign. So that is a reason why I just need to go with what is fair here.
But also, they could delay it, I guess, too. They could sort of say this will happen between November and January after the election.
Oh,
so even if Trump wins, he could still go, then he could go to jail for a month and it wouldn't interfere with the election, but he'd have to do it before he starts being president in January 20th.
Wow.
Really weird stuff, man.
The way I hadn't even considered that. And the way you're presenting it now, Merchant's Choice here, makes me feel like, oh, maybe he actually will do some jail time.
I think he might.
I thought, oh, there's no way. It's just going to be a conditional discharge and, be like no real consequences.
I think it would look really terrible. I know that Merchant isn't supposed to take politics into account.
Right, but he has already taken it into account by not jailing him for breaking the gag order 10 times. And Merchant seemed to get really annoyed at that. So
definitely.
And so I also wonder if he'll just jail him simply for that, for being in contempt.
That's interesting. Well, that could also play into his decision whether to jail him or not.
True. Yeah.
Like his behavior. He's just been an asshole. I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but yeah.
How dare you? Yeah.
I'm not sorry.
Don't be. But yet, nobody else who is acting like he is would. If there was any other white-collar criminal, they would do some jail time after acting like this in court.
They would have been sent to jail immediately after his behavior.
Right. Because, part of the reason we talked about this at one point, why he didn't send him to jail, perhaps, for all the contempt, is because he didn't want to slow down the trial. He just wanted to get it done. And because of the logistics, it would have, and him being, a presidential candidate, former president, that would have slowed things down greatly.
Got it. Now, before we wrap it up, because I don't want to go on forever, since this is part 2 of a 2-part episode. Now, say Merchant gives him 6 months.
Yeah.
So he would have to be in jail, and it happens immediately. or it happens in a couple of months. His sentencing will happen in July. So there's a situation, potentially, where Trump will have to be in jail for the remainder of the campaign and the beginning of his presidential term if he wins. So a lot of people are saying if that happens, that would go to the Supreme Court. Like, can you serve a sentence while you're president? And then, of course, Alito and Thomas will throw that away. So would that spring him from jail?
Right. Well, I imagine any jail time might go to the Supreme Court, right?
I think any of this, a lot of this, even, I think it could. And we all know what would happen there. 7-2 or 6-3 for Trump. I mean, maybe not. Maybe we'd be shocked.
You never know. Yeah.
But this is crazy shit, and it's just going to get crazier. So I'm glad we're talking about it, and we'll wrap up. Have a great weekend, Matt, and to the listeners out there.
Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Have an interesting weekend.
Oh.
Nice one.